I'm gonna wait on this housing market to crash. I ain't buying anything right now.
You know, I saw this like 15 years ago, and it's obviously gonna happen again. We're in a bubble and it's about to burst.
This market's gonna crash soon.
I know you guys have heard at least one or two people, or maybe even yourself, say some of those sayings. I know I have at least heard it 11 times with what's going on in this market. But how much weight does that really hold? Today, I'm going to tell you what's really going on so you can make a better decision when it comes to buying in our Georgia market. The first thing to look at is supply versus demand. Georgia is much more affordable than other states. We are ranked 46th when it comes to affordability and health care. So a lot of people are wanting to move to our area because they can afford it. So that's why you see people from all these really expensive states moving down here to try to take advantage of saving some of that money. This graph right here shows you how little of supply we have even compared to last year. If you look over here at the right, that is May of 2022 compared to May of 2021. There's a big drop from last year to this one, and you will notice this trend has been going on for a few months now. So we all remember the old economics teacher.
Okay, class, we all remember the prime example of supply and demand. We know when demand goes up, your price goes up. When supply drops, your price also goes up. But when these two meet in the middle right here, that is equilibrium, and that is going to be the perfect spot where everything equals out. But right now, we have a lot of demand and not a lot of supply, which means price is going up.
This principle still exists, and this tells us that with demand staying as high as it is, that we know that there's going to be, let's make sure I get this straight. This principle still exists, and that tells us that since supply is still so low, our demand is going to keep pushing up to try to compensate. Now, another phrase I know you guys have heard is, I'm just gonna wait on all these foreclosures, then I'm gonna scoop one up for a deal. Look, I hate to burst that bubble, but I don't see that happening either. This isn't 2006 when we saw all those foreclosures hit the market. The lenders were so much more lax back then. I mean, basically you just had to have a pulse and you got approved for a job. Basically, you just had to have a pulse and you were approved for a loan. It's kind of like some of these healthcare facilities right now. As long as you got a pulse, they're hiring you because they're just in such desperate need for workers. That's the way it was back then. But since then, they've really tightened down. You need to put more money down. You need to have a better credit score to show that you are qualified to purchase that house. They also had balloon payments. So what a balloon payment is you start out and you have these lower payments starting out, and then at the end of this term, you have this big balloon payment that's due. So the way you look at it is, it was great when they first came in. They could easily afford it. It was nice. But then when that balloon payment came in, it was like that pretty girl that her makeups wore out throughout the night. Just plain scary. They couldn't afford it. Like, it was bad. However, in today's market, people have about $185,000 of equity in their home. Now, of course, this isn't everyone. We bought our home 3 years ago and we don't have quite that much built up in ours yet. But people do have a lot of equity. So if they're coming to the end and they're struggling to where they can't afford their payment anymore, why would they let that go back to the bank and lose all that money? Instead, they can list it, make that $185,000, get themselves out of that mess and be set up. So that's a big difference why we're not seeing quite as many foreclosures. And if you look at this statistic for the West Georgia area, we haven't seen hardly any hit our market lately. So that only goes to verify my prediction there. I recently had some clients that were getting behind on payments and they really were thinking they were gonna have to foreclose. But we worked out a plan for them. They ended up walking away with money. Now, it wasn't quite as much as some of these figures. It was only like $20,000, but still, that kept them from taking a hit on their credit and getting to walk away with some money at the end of the day. So for that reason, I just do not see this market being flooded with foreclosures. So on top of this lack of inventory, there's also a lack of new constructions going up. Back when the market was doing what it was, we saw new constructions popping up everywhere. Subdivisions were flying up, builders were getting these houses out. If you'll remember, a lot of those homes weren't built really well because they were just trying to fly up. But now we're seeing a big drop in that. But the new construction process is now taking so much longer to get through. Do you guys remember just a few months ago when the lumber was through the roof expensive? You see what I did there? Yeah. But seriously, that knocks so many people out of being able to afford a new construction home and to be able to afford to renovate their home because it was just so expensive. I personally had clients, so we were under contract for at least 3 to 4 months. Everything was taking forever. We didn't really know what was going on. And finally, the new construction people backed out. They just said they could no longer afford to honor that price they had given my clients. Everything had gotten so much more expensive and they just couldn't do it. And we were just out of luck. Like there was nothing we could do. We could have like gone after them, but I mean, realistically, the new construction company would have probably just foreclosed and called bankruptcy and been done with that. So they had to start all over fresh and obviously go up on that price with a new construction company because of how much labor and supplies had gone up. We have also seen major delays. So getting things in, like getting the windows in, the appliances, there was this shortage. There's just been a lot of delays with that. And I had another client who we were under contract with them at the end of summer, and we were supposed to close in December, the very end of the year. Well, of course that didn't happen. It got pushed up and took almost double the time, and they finally got into it in the spring just because of delays. Like everything was just taking forever, and that was causing a big issue on the market because they had to sell their house, and obviously we couldn't sell it until we got this other one taken care of. So it's just like that trickle effect of affecting everybody whenever you're having the supply issues. I'm also seeing a lot of people that are holding off on selling their home because they don't have anywhere to go. So what sense does it make if you can sell your home and get all this money, but then you're stuck homeless living under a cardboard box? Like that's just not good for anyone. And I had a friend that was going to make $100,000 on her home, and we went through everything. She was ready to go, but when we were looking at the market and finding something that she could move into and not come in debt a lot, there just wasn't anything there. Plus, when you couple the increased interest rates, then she was going to actually be worse off. So she would make that $100,000, but she would just have to put it into like basically the same house but pay more because interest rates went up. So that doesn't make sense. So that's causing a lot of people to really be hesitant in this market because they don't know where they could go. So all of these things that I've told you so far suggest that the market is staying strong, but I do have a couple other things that may make you rethink that. First, home buyers are giving up. Like the prices are going up. It's getting really tough getting beat out of bidding wars and trying to go through this multiple times. And I personally know several of my clients that are just like, we're just going to wait. Like we just can't do this right now. It's mentally taxing and it's tiring, and they just wanted to break from it. And I totally get it. And obviously we just talked about the supply and demand thing. But if they're going to back off, that's going to take some of that demand away, and that may help kind of even this out when you don't have as many people that are out looking for a house anymore. And I've personally already began to see this shift in our market. Now, some houses are still rocking and rolling, but I have seen some other ones slow down. Whereas when you would typically list a house a few months ago, you would get bombed with showings and get tons of offers in the first 2 days. Now, you may get a trickle of showings and maybe 1 or 2 offers, but it's not nearly as much as it was. And I think that's because a lot of buyers are getting really frustrated. Also, interest rates are rising. So I'm sure you've probably heard how much interest rates are rising. They're making significant jumps. Where we are right now is 5.65. That's probably going to go up. My lender friend did say that they see interest rates going up to 10% by the end of summer. So that's huge. That makes a really big difference in what you can afford on a house. So if you're looking at buying a $700,000 house, but you can get in with your interest rate of 3.5, your payment's only going to be around $3,100 a month, which is pretty affordable. However, if we bump that interest rate up to 7.5, and that's not even as high as my lender friend told me we're going, but that's going to change your payment. It's going to go to $4,800 a month. So that's a big difference with just that little interest rate, just to give you an idea of how much that really changes things. So if you could have bought a house a few months ago and you held off because you wanted to wait, I hate to break it to you, but you made a bad decision because interest rates are just going up and you're just going to pay more money now for it. So you could have got the house at a cheaper price with a cheaper mortgage. However, the good news is there's still time to get in it before it jumps up to 10% like my lender is thinking that it will. Another thing that's going on is inflation is rising. So this one's kind of a double-edged sword because there's an economic principle that says when inflation rises, so does the housing market, because they just go hand in hand, and a lot of your investors will put their money in the housing market because that's safe and that protects their dollar. However, when you're looking at a regular person that's buying a home, when everything else goes up, their food, their gas, everything costs more, they don't have as much money to put down on a down payment, to put down towards a house, and that affects things. Now, of course, the other side of that is that also affects rents. Rent rates have gone tremendously. Like, I was able to increase my rent by $200 just in a year because of how much it went in the market. And I could have gone up even more than that, and I felt really bad about it, and I didn't. So rent is going up, which also will lead them kind of towards wanting to get a mortgage because it won't be quite as much. But that is something to kind of look at. I actually ran the comps on my home, and if I were to rent this house versus what I'm paying for a mortgage, I would pay an extra $800 a month. Say what? Like $800, who wants to pay that much more to rent? That is insane. No, thank you. That's almost my house payment. Like that is just insane. So my personal opinion on all this is that a shift is happening and or coming. I don't think there's going to be that huge crash that there was in 2006 just because times are different, and I just don't see that coming, but I definitely see a shift. So what that means for you is if you are buying with a loan, I still think right now is probably the best time for you to buy because of interest rates, and I don't know when interest rates are going to go back down. So even if the housing market does cool off a little bit and the houses go down $10,000, $20,000, you're still going to be paying just as much, if not more, when the interest rate goes up. So that's kind of bad. However, if you're a cash buyer, I would wait because, like I said, I do think it's going to even out just a little bit, and then I think you'll be able to get more bang for your buck. And I believe what I preach because we're actually actively selling my house right now. Like I've been waiting and I've been studying the market, and I feel so confident in it that I'm going to go ahead and sell because I feel like right now I will get the most money for my house than I will at any other time. Now I could be wrong. I'm not a fortune teller.
Oh, your future is looking very bright, especially if you buy your wife a big diamond ring for her anniversary. I don't make this up.
But I do think that that's probably the best, and that's what we're going to do. If you have found this video helpful, make sure you check out this one on which area you should move to if you are wanting to move to our West Georgia area. As always, I'm your Unicorn Real Estate Agent, helping you turn your real estate dreams into a reality.